This is Fintech Chatter, presented by Tier 1 People, leaders in Fintech executive search. And I'm your host, Dexter Cousins. Today I'm joined by Victor Zheng. He's the CEO of mx51 and previously the co-CEO of Assembly Payments. mx51 partners with banks and acquirers to deliver exceptional merchant experiences. Through a white label payments as a service platform, mx51 seamlessly connects the world of commerce into multi-channel payments. Before we start today's show, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for the support that you've given. It's been a huge year for Tier 1 People, and a big part of that is the podcast. I'm genuinely humbled that so many of you listen and enjoy the show. We've got a lot going on in terms of roles and opportunities here at Tier 1, and we're currently looking for CTOs, GM level partnerships and client services, and senior solutions architects and delivery heads. So if you are thinking about a move and something like that fits your bill, get in touch at info@tier1people.com. Welcome to the show, Victor.
Thanks, Dexter. Great to be on Fintech Chatter, and thank you for having me.
Great to have you, and it's it's the first time we've got together since before the pandemic hit. So it's really, really great to have you on the show. We would have had a coffee before now, I'm sure, had we not had pandemic to deal with.
I know it's a bit surreal. It was 18 months ago, but we're in our second lockdown here in Sydney. It's almost like back to the past, like having kids now during school holidays, at home.
Yeah,
they all work and done things.
They always seem to hit at the school holidays, these lockdowns, eh?
I know, timing's crazy. Anyway, but we're still, as a nation, we're still very, very lucky compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thought it would be great if you could share with our listeners a little bit about mx51 and also some of the kind of backstory to the business, Victor.
Yeah, sure. So mx51 was spun out about 12 months ago from a company called Assembly Payments. So Assembly Payments, Simon Lee and myself were co-CEOs and co-founders of Assembly Payments. Assembly Payments had two businesses, essentially two divisions. There was one division that was a platform and marketplace payments business. It was a direct-to-market brand, and it really did the workflow of payments between buyer, a seller, and a platform or marketplace. And then it had a second division, which was building a white label payments as a service platform for banks and acquirers. And one of the things we realized about 18 months ago was that it was so difficult to build one successful business, yet alone trying to build two. And it was really tough for the same management team to try to build two of these businesses in parallel. And so the board made a decision to spin the two businesses out and really give both businesses its dedicated management focus. And the original Assembly Payments platform and marketplace business was basically put into a joint venture with Standard Chartered and really focused in that sort of Asian market. And the payment as a service platform business was spun out as mx51, and I went with that business to focus on mx51.
Fantastic. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of who mx51 helps and who your clients are and who some of your competitors are as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So look, mx51 is a white label platform, white label payments as a service platform, and our customers are banks and acquirers. And the problem we're really trying to solve is how do you drive the right payment experience for the merchant and really focus on that interaction between commerce and multi-channel payments. And the best way to think about this is to have a think about the disruptors who have really nailed this area. If you think about Stripe, Braintree, Adyen, Square, these guys have really, really nailed this experience. They've made it really simple for merchants to be able to sell in-store, online, and integrate the world of commerce and reconciliation and marketing and loyalty all together with payments into that one platform. And really what these disruptors have done is they've solved for the pain points that merchants need in this space. And And as a consequence of that, they've taken market share from the traditional acquirers and banks that previously dominated this space. So really what MX51 here is focused on is really providing that same capability, but instead of competing against banks and acquirers, we want to work with banks and acquirers and provide a white label platform so that they can compete against disruptors.
So the assembly business, I mean, went on an absolute tear and was one of the big success stories of a Australian scaling fintech, Victor. How big is the MX51 business now that you've split?
Yeah, so I think MX51, we're doing about annualized one and a half, just probably over $1.5 billion in volume process if you annualize the volume. But we're growing very quickly. When we first launched, Westpac was a major investor and partner, and Westpac had exclusivity for a period of time. And that exclusivity ended last year. So pretty much our business today is on the back of Westpac. And, we're now starting to work and develop new relationships with other banks and acquirers. And I think because of that, you're going to see our growth to be exponential sort of in the second half of this year and into next year.
Mm. And in terms of how many people, how big's the business?
Yeah, so when we split, we actually, when we did the demerge and split with Assembly Payments, we had about 80 people, 85 people at that point. And then within a month, the pandemic really hit. And so we had to, like every other fintech, we went through really tough decisions. We cut down probably 35% headcount. We took that down and so we're now sitting about just over 50, but we're starting to recruit again. So now we've gone through a really tough period like other startups and other fintechs, but now we're sort of back into that growth phase.
And so I guess, there's been some, you touched on some of the challenges earlier, having the kind of two different business models, the kind of co-CEO model that was required because of those two different business models, the investment by Westpac and them being your kind of main or only client for a while. Sounds like you've had some like really tough, kind of, I guess, situations to overcome, Victor. When you look back over this last few years, what do you think is the biggest challenge that you've had to rise to?
Yeah, I would say that it's been like a really tough 12 to 18 months. I think with every startup, cash is, having cash and being able to fund your business is so critical. And, when the pandemic hit, we were planning to do a raise sort of around mid last year. And when the pandemic hit, it really stopped those plans, right? And so survival was the toughest part of it. But not only just surviving, but keeping morale high and keeping people motivated and believing that, there is light at the end of the tunnel. That's been really, really tough. But, I don't think we're unique to that. I think a lot of businesses went through the same hardships.
Yeah. And so I guess as you kind of, look at, this last 12 months, what would you say have been some of the wins that you've had to kind of keep the team motivated, keep yourself motivated, and really kind of focused on just pushing forward?
Yeah, I think what was really positive is, we had, last year we had, April, May were really tough months, right? The pandemic hit, payments volume, dropped in, especially for a business. We've got a multi-channel strategy and we've got in-store that's, in live and doing really well, and e-commerce will launch later this year. But when the pandemic hit, our in-store business took a big hit. That was really tough. But the great thing was we saw a bounce back really strongly, starting from about, I'd say, July. But, July, August, September, October, the business really went forward. And, it was quite significant. By December, we were processing, 3 or 4 times the volume compared to January before the pandemic hit, January, February. So, that was really positive.
And so from an innovation perspective, Victor, I mean, what do you seeing here in Australia in the space that you're in? I mean, it's amazing. I went to Officeworks the other day and I was seeing Square terminals, Zeller, and it's just incredible, right? That we can now, as a small business owner, you can pop into Officeworks and get yourself a merchant terminal and start taking payments. What's got you excited about the space right now?
Yeah, there's so much innovation in this space, like in payments, right? And Australia's a great market for disruptors to come in and test their proposition because we're such a mature payments market. And so, in the bottom end, so the micro SME end, you've got Square, you've got Zella, and then if you move into sort of SME and commercial, you've got local players like Tyro for in-store, but you've got Stripe really dominant, Braintree, and then if you go to the top end of the market, you've got Ardian up there. And it's such an exciting space, and I think where this market is going is it's really moving beyond payments. So if you think about Stripe and Ardian, really great experiences for online payments. Ardian's a true multi-channel player, so it's got in-store and online. Stripe's moving that way. So Stripe started off online and now aggressively moving to in-store. So now we're looking at a multi-channel payments world, because businesses today, pretty much most businesses operate across in-store and online. So you've got to make that seamless, that interaction between in-store and online. But what's got me really excited for the future is the ecosystem beyond payments. So you look at someone like Square, for example, in a closed loop environment. You've got Square, they've got in-store capability, payments capability, online payments capability. They've got point of sale. But now their ecosystem includes order ahead, invoicing, appointments, Square Capital, and there's a lot of that ecosystem play. And I think payments is at the heart of it and at the heart of that data. And then you can really use that to pull together this ecosystem of value-added capability around it.
No, it's I guess you mentioned that it is a hot market, and you talked about some of the challenges earlier, but there was some good news at the end of May this year, where Westpac had announced some further investment. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, it was actually around. Westpac actually didn't come into this round. They were definitely supportive of it, but we had new investors come in, and we had 4 sort of major investors come in. We had Acorn Capital, who are Melbourne-based, great growth fund. We had Artesian come in. We had Commensa, which was spun out of Investec in Australia. That's Commensa Capital, and then also MasterCard came in as well. So it was our first, call it a Series A round for mx51 since its spin out of Assembly Payments.
And so Visa and MasterCard are kind of dominant, playing very heavily in this space. What do you see as the kind of the reason, or the attraction for a Visa to come in and back, MasterCard to come in and back mx51?
Yeah, so if you have a look at MasterCard's business, if you think about MasterCard, you think about credit cards, right? The issuing side of the business. But if you have a look what's happening, and I'll use examples of this, and I would say, locally you've got Afterpay, Zip. Globally, you've got players like Alipay and WeChat Pay, but these businesses both control the consumer side and the merchant side, and so you've got this closed loop environment in some ways where you can drive not just payments between merchants, between consumers to merchants, but you can also drive offers and redemption of offers and loyalty in that ecosystem, right? And so, you think about MasterCard's business, they have strong issuing relationships with global banks and banks globally, sorry. And then what they're missing is really that merchant side of the business. So they're looking to build better capability to engage merchants. And suddenly then you'll have this ecosystem effect as well, because there are these massive, pools of consumers globally. And now if you add in merchants, you can really start using that data to drive sort of offers and loyalty and marketing campaigns. So no longer are you just providing a payment service, but you're also driving relevant offers from the merchants into the right consumer base.
So I'd like to chat with you a little bit around the leadership side now, Victor. And you talked about some of the challenges with COVID, and a lot of businesses have had to look at the workforce, and then make some cuts, and then things pick up again, and you've got to hire again. What would you say from a leadership perspective has been the kind of hardest thing around kind of rebuilding that team and kind of keeping the culture going as you're going through through that kind of down period, and then it's almost like it's sprung back within weeks when when we look at the kind of period that we've been through in this last 18 months.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is when things are really tough. I think the important thing is not to think of all the issues as one big issue, and really to keep saying, if sometimes you've got to break the problems down, right? There's multiple issues, but break them down into distinct issues and then work through them in a rational, logical way. And as a leader, I think it's really important to be able to do that, because if you don't do that, then what happens, what I find, is this snowball effect where there's issues here, there's issues there, and then suddenly things spiral, right? So, being able to slow down, stop, break the problems apart into distinct ones, and then sort of prioritize on what you work on, I think is critical. And then really being able to then sort of stay passionate and stay hopeful, right? And making sure that, you bring everyone in the organization along the journey, being very transparent on the challenges, but at the same time, really be able to sort of walk through a pathway forward through the difficulties, right? And so I think they're really important things.
How helpful has it been, kind of being able to retain some of the kind of original people from the assembly payments business and now kind of taking you on this next step of the journey?
Really critical. I mean, the good thing for us is, a lot of the core team is still together, and that's really important. If you lose, if you lose your core team, you lose the key people, then obviously that's really, really hard to rebuild. If you've got that core team, then it's much easier to build around that core team and to expand. So that's been really critical, and we've been really lucky in that aspect that we've been able to retain all our core team together.
And you've got people across Australia. How have you found with working remotely? Has that opened up the talent pool for you, where you've now got access to anybody in the world, or do you find that in a business it's still kind of 50 people or so, you still need to get that kind of those moments where you're all together in the same room trying to build something?
Yeah, I think it really has opened up the pool for us. The pandemic has proven that you can effectively work remotely, right? And so, most of our people are still sort of coming into the office. Obviously, before this lockdown, we're coming in 1 to 2 days a week into the office. And that's worked really well. So the remote side has worked really well. And about a month ago, we changed our people and hiring policy to allow full remote working. And so in the last month, we've actually hired 3 people that are fully remote, two in Brisbane. We don't have an office in Brisbane, and 1 in Hobart, right? And so that really has opened the talent pool, and that's been great.
How have you found being able to lead, and particularly when you got challenging times? That's it's something that we hear more and more, where there's cracks starting to show after 12 months of people kind of leading via Zoom, that maybe it's a little bit more difficult to inspire and motivate people and get everybody on the same page. What's been your approach to overcome that and kind of still get everybody pulling in the right direction?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I mean that is one of the challenges. And it's we have all hands. We have fortnightly all hands, and we're all on Zoom. And the challenge with that sometimes is not everyone has a camera on, so you can't really read the body language across the organisation. But what we try to do is we try to have once a month we try to have an event where we get everyone together, into the office or into another environment where we do an activity or team building, etc. So I think that's really important. We're just actually planning our first offsite, and hopefully hopefully COVID will not spring on us again in September. But in September, we're looking to take everyone to a 2-day offsite. We get together. So I think remote's good, but you need that that face-to-face element as well. I think that's really important. And one of the things we are really looking forward to is once the vaccine rollout is out there. Once we have most people have the vaccines, it'd be great to sort of see whether or not we can get people back into the office more regularly. maybe 2 days a week, or maybe even 3 days a week, because you need that face-to-face.
Yeah. And you talked about changing your kind of approach and policies to be remote first. Has that then had an impact or a bearing on the qualities and characteristics that you look for in people now and talent when you're hiring?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think one of the things it makes it really, really important is, the communication side is so important. Because one of the things I do miss face-to-face is, if something goes wrong in a meeting, there's misunderstanding, the face-to-face element really helps with pulling someone aside afterwards and say, look, I don't think that quite went right. This is where I was coming from. I think it's harder in a remote setting. We've always emphasized on finding the right people, but really importantly, culturally, that person's a fit to the organization. And as part of that, communications is a key element of that cultural fit. And I think if nothing, we've really focused on making sure that in that remote world that we are actually even looking even deeper in that cultural fit and communication side of things.
And I guess with the kind of move that you've seen to being fully remote, what kind of feedback are you getting from your people as to how they enjoy it and how they find it works for them?
It's funny because we find that the engineers love remote working. They love their remote working. They've got their free monitors up. They've got their headphones on. There's no one that's going to tap them on the shoulder, and they can code away, all day. And then you see the non-engineering roles, it's the business development, account management, product designer. I think in those roles, you see people wanting more to come back to work. And so it's really by role. But I do think, though, even in the engineering side of the business, I do think most people want to come in at least 1 day a week. And so that's since for the last sort of 9 months, we've had that at least 1 day a week, and I think that's worked quite well.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up, I think, Victor, every conversation that I've had with business leaders around remote is that you've got this kind of it's almost like polarized, right, where the developers and engineers, as you say, will work remote for the rest of their life if they can, but others are really missing that human interaction and just being able, that particularly when you're building something, I think it's so important to have that connection with people.
Absolutely. I mean, communication, face-to-face communication, and we also try, for example, to get, when we do increment planning, we try to get everyone in face-to-face, right? So there are certain milestones or certain events that we really, really focus on getting people in face-to-face.
So we kind of talked about some of the stuff that's happening in payments that's got you excited. But when you look at fintech a little bit more broadly here in Australia, what's got you kind of excited at the moment, and what do you think is worth people kind of being aware of?
Yeah, I think the fintech community here is quite strong. We've got such great companies. Obviously, I've got a bias towards payments, but you look at open banking. There's some great things happening in open banking. You think about buy now, pay later, and you look at the Australian organisations like Zip and Afterpay, and there's Hum and there's OpenPay. There's so many of them, and you'd say that that's market leading globally, right? In that space as well. There's so many great businesses. You look on the AFR, and every week you hear about an Australian business that's done really, really well, bought by a global company, whether or not it's in things in the education space or the software deployment space or the cloud space. There seems to be a lot of innovation in the Australian market, which is great to see.
Awesome. And what can we expect from mx51 in the next 12 months, Victor?
Yeah, I think our focus in the next 12 months really is to work with, different banks and acquirers in the Australian market. And that's really, really important. I think we've got great product market fit. The next is about sort of scaling that business. And so that's a focus. The second area of focus is really to drive out and build out our multi-channel solution. So we've got a really great capability for in-store. We're in current development in online, and bringing that sort of in-store and online together and that multi-channel world, and then be able to go beyond just installing online payments into the ecosystem of value-added services that we talked about earlier, whether or not it's be able to bring in people with cash flow lending capability or marketing capability or loyalty capability, being able to bring them into the ecosystem, and building out that solution is second area. And the third area is really, it may be beyond 12 months, but we're having a great investor like MasterCard on board and having a commercial relationship with MasterCard, we actually see a great opportunity to be able to work with MasterCard beyond Australia. If you think about globally, they've got over 20,000 banking relationships around the world, and we really want to leverage that relationship from MasterCard to be able to penetrate other markets.
Brilliant. And where can people find out more about MX51?
Yeah, look, follow us on LinkedIn. Come to our website, mx51.io, and Google us. I'm sure you'll find a lot of press about us recently.
Awesome. Well, Victor, it's been great to have you on the show, and you can find me at Dexter Cousins on LinkedIn and Dexter Cousins on Twitter. For early access to new shows, subscribe to our newsletter by visiting the Fintech Chatter page on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving us a review, so it helps me bring on great guests like Victor. Fintech Chatter is presented by Tier 1 People, leaders in fintech executive search. We'll help you launch, scale, and innovate by delivering world-class talent. And you can find out more at tier1people.com. Until the next episode, stay safe.